Marietta is not the newest suburb, the trendiest suburb, or the cheapest suburb in Metro Atlanta, but it is one of the most established and one of the most complete. So today, I am giving you the full guide to living in Marietta, Georgia in 2026, what kind of place it is, what daily life feels like, and who tends to fit here best. My name's Joel, I'm a local realtor here in Metro Atlanta, and I help people relocate here all the time. Let's get into it. If you're not super familiar with Marietta, it sits about 30 minutes northwest of Atlanta in Cobb County, right along I-75. And Marietta is what I would consider one of the pillar suburbs of the metro. It's not some niche suburb that's only known for one thing. It's not just the luxury suburb, the lake suburb, or the cute downtown suburb, or the value suburb. It's more like one of the foundational suburbs. Officially, the city's population is a little over 63,000 based on the latest census estimate, but in real life, Marietta feels much bigger than the city limits would suggest because it has so much gravity around it, with about 300,000 having a Marietta address despite not living in the actual city limits. People come here for work, people come here for the hospitals, people come here for events, people come here for restaurants, people come here because even if they don't live in Marietta, they still end up using Marietta. And once you understand it as one of these foundational suburbs, the next question is what daily life here actually revolves around. Marietta tends to revolve around convenience. That's one of the biggest themes of the city. This is not the suburb where everything feels new and master planned. It feels more established than that. Some may say older, and some would say more lived in than that. Life here tends to revolve around a few things: the square, the school-driven neighborhoods, the major roads, the hospital systems, the job centers, and the fact that most of what you need is already here. That's why Marietta works for so many different kinds of people. It can work for families, it can work for professionals, it can work for people who want access, it can work for buyers who don't want it to feel, kind of way out in the suburbs. Maybe just only slightly out in the suburbs. So when people move to Marietta, I don't think they're usually chasing one flashy thing. They're usually choosing a place that makes everyday life easier. Talking about Marietta must involve discussions on the square. This is still the emotional center of the city and probably the clearest expression of what makes Marietta feel like Marietta. It's historic, but still active. It's charming, but still useful. It's the kind of downtown that actually gets used by locals, not just photographed and posted online. At the center is Glover Park, and the city's 2026 event calendar is still built around regular downtown programming, including the Glover Park concert series and other city events throughout the year, like one of my favorites, Chalktoberfest. And it's things like these that give the city a real center of gravity. You can bring the kids, you can do date night, you can meet friends, you can wander around with no real plan and still have a great time. And that's what a strong downtown does for a suburb. It gives it identity. Marietta would certainly still be a practical place without the square, but the square is what keeps it from feeling purely functional. It gives the city some soul. Now, as great as the square is, it's only one version of Marietta, and this is something a lot of buyers need to understand. Yeah. You're looking good. One of the most important things to understand about Marietta is that it's not just one thing. There are different versions of Marietta, and if you don't understand that, you can end up talking about the city too generally. You've got areas closer to the square that feel older, more historic, and a little bit more connected to the original identity of the city. You've got more polished, school-driven areas where a lot of the conversation revolves around neighborhoods, school ratings, resale, and long-term family appeal. You've got busier commercial stretches where convenience is the whole point. Every errand, every store, every restaurant, all right there. Then you've got quieter, established neighborhoods that feel a little bit more tucked away, even though they're still close to everything. That's why two people can both say they live in Marietta and actually be describing pretty different day-to-day experiences. And honestly, that's part of what makes the city appealing. You have options here. Marietta is one of those suburbs that people don't just like, they rely on it. And this is an important distinction. A lot of the suburbs are nice places to live. Marietta is also a nice place that people actually use. Healthcare is a great example of this. Wellstar Kennestone's new 9-story, 235-bed tower opened just this past April as part of a $400 million expansion. That is not a small community hospital story. That is major regional infrastructure and something that people from other surrounding suburbs travel into Marietta for. But for the residents, it's just down the road. Jobs are another big part of it. Between the healthcare presence, Lockheed Martin's long-standing Marietta campus, and all the surrounding business activity on this side of the metro, Marietta has serious economic gravity. So if you're the type of buyer who likes being close to places that actually matter in day-to-day life, that is one of Marietta's biggest strengths. The city is not just nice on paper, it's actually useful. Hey, what's up?
Are you familiar with this campus really well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Now, schools are one of the big reasons Marietta stays high on people's list. And one thing you do need to understand here is that Marietta is split between two different public school systems. You've got Marietta City Schools inside the city system, and then the much larger portion of the Marietta area feeds into Cobb County schools. The good news is this is generally not a conversation about trying to avoid bad options. It's more a conversation about how good the options are in the specific part of Marietta you're looking at. If you're in more of the southern Marietta areas, you can still find plenty of solid school ratings in schools that a lot of families are going to feel really comfortable with. And then as you move over into East Cobb, that's where you start getting into some of the most highly rated public school options really anywhere in the area, with schools like Walton, Lassiter, and Pope consistently showing up at the very top of the local ratings lists. So the school conversation in Marietta is less about are there good schools here and more about which part of Marietta gives me that level of school rating I'm looking for. One of the nice things about Marietta is that recreation here does not feel one-dimensional. You've got the square, you've got restaurants, you've got local events, you've got easy access to Truist Park and the Battery. Who doesn't want the local MLB team in their own backyard? And then you've got some real outdoor options nearby too. Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield Park has 25 plus miles of trails, which is a huge lifestyle perk if you like having an actual go-to hiking spot close to home, as well as some great historical background. So Marietta isn't one of those suburbs where the answer to what do people do around here is just drive somewhere else. A lot of the time, the activity is either right here or right next door. And that gives the city a little more day-to-day livability than some suburbs that are fine during the week, but feel maybe flat on the weekends. Kennesaw. And once you understand the schools, the access, and the day-to-day lifestyle here, the next question is what all of that tends to cost. Now, here's where Marietta gets a little bit more nuanced because the housing story has changed a lot over the years. Public housing data is a little noisy depending on source and the time window, but most recent data puts the median home price for Marietta just over $500,000. So no, Marietta is not cheap, but it's also not top of the market expensive for North Metro Atlanta either. Once upon a time, Marietta would have felt a lot closer to the top of the list in terms of price, but these days with how much some of the surrounding suburbs have appreciated, Marietta feels a little bit more middle of the pack. And honestly, that makes sense because what you're paying for here is not some flashy niche. You're paying for location, you're paying for convenience, you're paying for established neighborhoods, you're paying for a suburb that already has the hospitals, the schools, the roads, the downtown, and the daily life infrastructure that's already in place. So if your goal is to find the absolute cheapest option, Marietta definitely isn't that. But if you want a city that feels proven, complete, and still well positioned for what it offers, there's still a ton of value here. So you can sleep well knowing your dollar got you lots to look forward to. Now, when you put all of that together, the access, the convenience, the schools, the recreation, a pretty clear picture starts to emerge of who tends to feel at home here. The people who tend to like Marietta are usually looking for a suburb that feels complete. Not perfect, not trendy, not hidden, complete. They want a real downtown. They want strong practical infrastructure. They want healthcare nearby. They want good school options. They want established neighborhoods. They want to be on the northwest side without feeling disconnected from everything. That's the Marietta buyer a lot of the time. They're not always looking for the flashiest suburb. They're looking for one that makes sense. And before you decide whether that sounds like you, there are a few things worth understanding about Marietta upfront. There are a few things to understand before choosing Marietta. First, this is a busier suburb. That's the trade-off of being useful and central. There's more movement, more errands, more roads, more activity. It can be very, very dense. Some people love that, and some people want maybe just a little bit more breathing room. Second, Marietta is pretty built out. So if your dream setup is tons of open land, huge lots everywhere, and a more relaxed outer suburb feel, this is not the best fit. And third, the exact pocket matters. Because Marietta is so large and so varied, your experience can change quite a bit depending on where you are. Now, that's not necessarily a negative. It just means that this is a city where neighborhood selection really matters. And honestly, that's one of the reasons working with someone local is really helpful here. Marietta rewards specificity. So Marietta is not the newest suburb, the trendiest suburb, or the cheapest suburb in Metro Atlanta, but it may be one of the easiest places to actually build a life because it has the downtown, the infrastructure, the healthcare, the schools, the location, and the day-to-day practicality to back it all up without getting too high in price. So if you're looking for a suburb that feels established, useful, and very livable, Marietta should absolutely be at least somewhere on your list. If you're trying to figure out which area in Metro Atlanta fits you best, reach out anytime. I help people relocate here every single day, and I'd be happy to help you narrow it down as well. If you're still in research mode, just keep watching some videos. I'll see you in the next one.